2 episodes deep, I'm not exactly sure if Chainsmoker Cat will go down as a modern masterpiece in the long run, but it is definitely already miles away a better anti-smoking ad than anything Dare ever showed me in school. After all, what could possibly be a better piece of anti-addiction propaganda than a vision of the sexiest girl you know, completely and utterly ruined, seemingly beyond repair, by one tiny little bad habit that she can't seem to shake? Chainsmoker Cat is beautiful and hilarious, both sexy and utterly f***ing disgusting in equally ironic measure. Obviously, unless you live under a rock, everyone has been talking about how disgusting the show is, but I do hear some talk through the grapevine that some people from the usual crowds over on X and Reddit, as I understand it, to no one's surprise, actually think that it glamorizes smoking? I guess by way of the sex appeal, the hilarity, and the catchy, colorful opening and closing song sequences, and I guess just the fact that they're supposed to be cute cat girls, even though they're really more like alley cat girls who live amongst trash. But I'm gonna have to confidently and completely disagree with that sentiment, and I think anyone who actually watched more than a minute of the show will as well. Chainsmoker Cat immediately does a beautiful job of showcasing through comedy and ironic sex appeal just how depraved the average everyday thoughts of an addict, even one who at times appears beautiful on the outside, can become. It illustrates how thoughts and actions, once seemingly completely absurd and out of line for anyone with any self-respect, can become the everyday average satisfying moment. For example, the scene of Yamineko immediately removing 5 cigarettes from a brand new pack to fit her lighter into the pack satisfyingly. Then of course immediately shotgunning those 5 cigarettes all at once, because what else are you gonna do with them? Or all the disgusting little places she finds roaches I mean, partially smoked cigarettes lying around, at which point she of course has to immediately start making excuses to herself and trying to salvage them, because to the mind of an addict, these are scarce, precious, expensive daily essentials. Or how about the disturbing satisfaction she showcases in finally getting her first massive drag at the end of a long shift, inconveniencing and repulsing the passerbys around her without even noticing. She showcases no respect whatsoever for the squalor that she lives in or how her addiction inconveniences those around her. And it's not only just the daily moments of ironic, depraved satisfaction, but also the daily struggles she goes through. What would usually seem like, once again, absurd wastes of time that accomplish nothing to the outsider looking in, to the normal, well-adjusted mind fit for society. For Yanni, these seem like necessary daily struggles, trying to wiggle the cigarettes out of a tightly packed box, or rationing her funds, or trying to find ways to make her cigarettes last longer, trying to find a job where she can still smoke whenever she wants. All of these moments are hilarious, but also simultaneously unflinchingly disgusting, which is just another microcosm of one of my favorite aspects of the medium of anime, to be honest, being able to have our cake and eat it too. In this case, showcasing this habit of hers plainly and frankly, with an at times filthy and quite grungy aesthetic, showcasing it as, at the very least, just as disgusting as it is in reality, but also simultaneously keeping it a weird, wacky, how the fuck does this even exist kind of comedy anime. But once again, hilarious or not, I still don't understand how anyone who's actually watching the show can think that it glorifies smoking in any way. There are so many disgusting little frequent reminders sprinkled throughout of just how lost and unfit for polite society Yanni is, and also just how unaware she is of that fact, how little self-awareness she has, how little self-respect she has. Her need to ration expenses and skimp out on food just to keep up with her addiction, her throwing a tantrum immediately upon running out after another chain smoking session, then rejoicing upon finding a lost bill that should clearly be spent on the food that she desperately needs at this point, only to immediately get blown on more cigarettes instead, leaving her with, in fact, ironically, even more cigarettes than she had before, but even less money than she had before the event began. It's a brilliantly ironic comedy punchline if you catch it, but also just another reminder of how dysfunctional and frankly ass backwards her perspective has become thanks to this addiction. There are also, and these might actually be my favorite little subtle touches, but the frequent little reminders throughout that Yanni finds totally normal smells and tastes from different foods and herbs and the like absolutely disgusting, while totally unaware of her own own repulsive stench and that of her apartment as well, with ironically the taste and smell of cigarettes being the one and only thing that she still takes unironic joy and satisfaction in, or the way that she only finally realizes just how truly disgusting and disheveled her room is after capturing it in a picture and being forced to preview it and reflect upon how the receiver would feel upon seeing it for the first time. She smokes menthols for the soothing mint while she has a cold. She tries alternatives like nicotine patches only to find disturbingly creative ways to use them to increase her nicotine input instead of waning it off. She mixes her cigarettes with various other substances like alcohol and caffeine to find new novel ways to take the edge off. And of course, all of these only lead her to even more blatantly unsanctimonious and unsightly states than before, showcasing, once again, absolutely no self-awareness for how the people around her view these activities that she's engaging in, often in public. Yanni believes above all else that she's free of the worries that those within the uniform, conformist society of Japan obsess over, that her self-destructive, self-abasing lifestyle is actually a manifestation of her freedom, but in reality, she's actually just an absolute and complete slave to her addiction instead. She's a burden on those around her, incapable of taking proper care of herself on a daily basis, and she's someone who has zero self-awareness and who takes zero self-responsibility for the fact that her conditions are in fact of her own making and not some form of bad luck or circumstances. Hilarious, and at times ironically sexy as it may be, and once again, personally, I think the irony of the sex appeal is in fact part of the point to showcase how a habit like this, even a small habit like this, can in fact make someone who would otherwise be absolutely irresistible into a repulsive mess that you wouldn't dare approach. Regardless of these appeals, this show nonetheless takes every opportunity it gets to be absolutely freaking disgusting and showcase just how depraved and unsightly all of the various characters' lifestyles have become. Anyway, to speak of the other characters, just briefly, they're only slowly being introduced anyway, but so far we have a cigarette addict, a junkie, and a streamer with not only extreme gamer rage, but also a fake persona, which I'm guessing might be leading to commentary on imposter syndrome at some point maybe. Judging by the outro image, I'm guessing one of the others is also an alcoholic, but I'm not sure about the habits the other characters will be representing here. Either way, I do think the show also does a great job at times of abstracting the habits out in a way which you can easily imagine apply to the effects of other habits as well. I also really appreciate the little factoids listed throughout about different bodily reactions that a person has from withdrawal and the like, how it affects everything from blood pressure regulation to even carbon monoxide and oxygen levels in the blood. Very interesting in their own right if you don't already know about these things, but also hilariously effective in my opinion at showcasing why you would never in your life want to start a habit like this. Bolstered by all of the little reminders throughout that I mentioned earlier, the way that all of these factoids and illustrations of common habitual scenarios involving addiction are presented throughout ironically reminds me of all those passion-driven slice of life anime full of well-researched fun facts from authors who have clearly thoroughly researched the passion topics that they're covering because they're genuinely interested in them. Think Yuru Camp for camping, Dress Up Darling for cosplay, or Bocchi the Rock for music. Except in this case, all of the well-researched fun facts are about addiction, substance abuse, and habitual depression. This is, in fact, the anti-smoking ad that they should have shown us in school. So anyway, the biggest question I have right now is, of course, will there be a truly heartfelt emotional journey for Yanni to break her addiction over the course of this series? I would certainly guess that we'll get that in the long run. It's just difficult to say how long that might take, given that it's kind of the series' core running gag, and one which is of course reflected in many of the supporting characters as well. And the idea of breaking that habit with emotional breakthrough moments is one that the show seems willing to repeatedly subvert for comedic purposes already. Somewhat similarly to the way that Konosuba often subverts the expectations of the party making legitimate, well-earned progress. So who knows how that's going to turn out in the long run. I just can't imagine a Japanese manga story of this type possibly ending without some kind of ultimately positive shonen heart-like message, which subverts that gag. Anyway, I won't spend long on it, but let me just say that this show actually looks absolutely beautiful when it wants to, far beyond what I expected from a show with this kind of subject matter. Between the cinematic background layouts, the moody smoking scenes, the gorgeous nightscapes, the simple but occasionally emotive character acting, and of course, obviously, absolute peak visual comedy, and even occasionally absurd mixed media segments somewhat reminiscent of Bocchi. Once again, the visual comedy is one thing, I kind of expected that, but I've really been blown away by the detailed rendering of background scenes, and the subtle but very effective animation used throughout emotive little character acting scenes. It's actually quite beautiful when it needs to be, and here's hoping that it stays consistent with that presentation. I don't know a ton about who all is behind this anime project as far as individuals go, but the studio is Bibury Animation, the same studio that brought us Quintessential Quintuplets, 100 Girlfriends, and Witch Watch, and the director is one Taku Kimura, who is actually making his debut here as overall series director, although he does have a few impressive credits as storyboarder and episode director here and there, featured in things like Frieren Season 1 and Dandadan Season 2. Anyway, here's wishing them the best of circumstances as the season continues and rounds out to a close. And I guess the last thing that I'll say is if you are also enjoying this show much like me, and you've somehow never checked out Welcome to the NHK, you really owe it to yourself to go back and check that one out. It's a certified classic, and definitely one of the closest shows that I can think of to this one's tone and subject matter, and also just a really good show in general. But anyway, that's about it for this one. Hope that you're having a good day wherever you are, and peace as always.